Commander Yuna Kim stood in the control room of Luna Base, watching Earth spin slowly below through the large windows. The blue planet looked peaceful from here, but Yuna knew that peace might not last much longer. She had been running security for the moon base for 3 years now, and nothing had prepared her for the message that came through the communication system that morning. The red light on her desk blinked faster than usual. Emergency messages always made that light go crazy. Yuna pressed the button and heard the voice of her communications officer. "Commander, we have an urgent message from the Galactic Senate. They want all Earth military leaders to hear this right away." Yuna felt her stomach drop. The Galactic Senate never sent urgent messages unless something was very wrong. She had hoped this day would never come, but deep down she always knew it might. "Put it through to all bases," she said. "Make sure everyone can hear this." The main screen in front of her lit up with the symbol of the Galactic Senate. 47 different alien species belonged to this group, and they made the rules for most of the galaxy. Earth had never officially joined them, but they had been watching humanity for over 200 years. The image changed to show the inside of the Senate building. It was a huge round room with seats going up in circles. Strange alien creatures sat in those seats, some with too many eyes, others with skin that changed colors, and a few that looked like they were made of crystal. In the center stood a tall, thin alien with purple skin and 4 arms. This was Thex Morin, one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. "People of Earth," Thex Morin began, his voice cold and serious. "The Galactic Senate has reached a decision about your species. After many years of watching your behavior, we have concluded that humanity represents a Category 5 existential threat to galactic peace and order." Yuna felt like someone had punched her in the chest. Category 5 was the highest threat level the Senate had. They only used it for species that could destroy entire star systems. "Your rapid expansion across 12 star systems in just 2 centuries shows a dangerous lack of control," Thex Morin continued. "Your refusal to accept proper authority and your aggressive nature make you unsuitable for galactic society. Most concerning is your species' inability to follow the natural order that has kept peace in this galaxy for thousands of years." The alien moved closer to the camera, and Yuna could see anger in his strange, yellow eyes. "Therefore, the Galactic Senate votes to place all human space under immediate quarantine. No human ships may leave your territory. No alien ships may enter it. You will remain isolated until you learn to behave properly, or until the Senate decides what to do with your species permanently." The message cut to show Ambassador Do-Hyun Park, Earth's representative to the galaxy. He stood in a small room, with white walls, looking tired and worried. Do-Hyun had been trying to keep peace between Earth and the aliens for 10 years, but Yuna could see in his face that he had failed. The vote was 43 in favor, 4 against, Do-Hyun said quietly. "I tried to explain that humanity just wants to be free to make our own choices, but they see that as a threat to their control. They gave us one option: submit to Senate oversight of all human colonies and military forces, or face the consequences of the quarantine." Yuna turned off the screen and sat down hard in her chair. Around the control room, her officers looked at her with worried faces. They all knew what this meant. Earth and all human colonies were now prisoners in their own space. Her communication system buzzed again. This time, it was a direct call from Earth. Yuna recognized the voice immediately. It was Jae-hyun Lee, the Prime Minister of Earth. "All military commanders, this is Prime Minister Lee. I know you have all heard the Senate's ultimatum. I want to make Earth's position very clear to everyone, both human and alien, who might be listening to this broadcast." Yuna could hear the strength in his voice, even though she knew he must be scared. Leading humanity had never been easy, but now it seemed almost impossible. The Galactic Senate believes they have the right to control how we live, where we go, and what we do. They think we should bow down to their authority just because they are older and more powerful. But they are wrong. The Prime Minister paused, and Yuna could imagine him looking directly into the camera, the way he always did when he wanted to make an important point. Humanity has spent thousands of years fighting for freedom. We have fought kings, emperors, and dictators on our own planet. We left Earth to explore the stars because we believe every person has the right to choose their own path. We will not give up that freedom now. Yuna felt pride growing in her chest. She had always believed in human independence, but hearing their leader say it so clearly made her feel stronger. We reject the Galactic Senate's authority over free humanity. We reject their quarantine. We reject their demand that we submit to their control. Earth and all human colonies will continue to govern themselves as they see fit. Around the control room, Yuna's officers began to smile. Some even clapped quietly. They all knew this meant war might be coming, but they also knew their leader was right. To the aliens who are listening, Prime Minister Lee continued, understand this. We do not want to fight you. We have always tried to be good neighbors. We have traded fairly, shared technology, and helped other species when they needed it. But we will not be slaves to your Senate. Yuna thought about all the alien friends she had made over the years. There was Keltor, the green-skinned trader who brought her coffee from distant worlds, and Visa, the crystal being who had taught her about alien technology. She hoped they would understand why humanity had to make this choice. To my fellow humans, the Prime Minister said, and now his voice was warm like a father talking to his children. I know this is scary. We are alone now, cut off from the galaxy we wanted to be part of. But we have something the Senate fears. We have each other, and we have our freedom. They called us a threat because we refuse to be controlled. If that makes us dangerous to their order, then so be it. The broadcast ended, leaving the control room in silence. Yuna looked out at Earth again, but now it looked different. It was no longer just her home planet. It was the center of free human space, surrounded by enemies who wanted to cage them like animals. Her second-in-command, Lieutenant Minjae Wan, walked over to her desk. Commander, what are your orders? Yuna stood up and looked at all the faces watching her. These people trusted her to keep them safe, and she would not let them down. We prepare for anything, she said. The aliens think they can lock us up, and we will just give up. They do not understand humans very well. Lock down all systems, double the security patrols, and start working on our defenses. If they want to test us, we will show them what free humans can do. As her officers rushed to carry out her orders, Yuna stayed by the window watching Earth turn in the darkness. The Galactic Senate had just made the biggest mistake in their long history. They thought isolation would weaken humanity, but Yuna knew better. When humans were trapped, they did not break. They became stronger. The aliens were about to learn that lesson the hard way. Captain Min-Ho Choi walked slowly around the bridge of his exploration ship, the New Horizon. 6 months had passed since the Galactic Senate declared their quarantine on human space, and Min-Ho was starting to understand just how big a mistake the aliens had made. His ship was patrolling the edge of human territory, watching for any alien vessels that might try to cross the quarantine line. So far, he had seen plenty of alien ships, but none of them were trying to get into human space. In fact, they seemed to be having the opposite problem. Captain, called out his navigation officer, Lieutenant Suman Park, we have another convoy of Zephyrian trade ships on the scanner. They are just sitting at the quarantine border, not moving. Min-Ho nodded and walked over to look at the screen. For the past 3 months, he had been watching the same thing happen, over and over. Alien trade ships would arrive at the edge of human space, realize they could not pass through, and then just wait there like they were hoping the quarantine would magically end. How many ships this time? He asked. 47 cargo vessels, Captain, all loaded with goods that used to go through the Centauri trade route. Min-Ho almost smiled. The Centauri trade route had been one of the busiest shipping lanes in the Big galaxy. It cut right through human space, saving alien traders months of travel time. Now that the quarantine blocked that route, those same traders had to go the long way around human territory, adding almost a year to their journeys. His communication, Officer Ensign Daeho Kim turned around in his chair. Captain, we are getting another message from the Zephyrian convoy leader. He wants to know if there is any way his ships can get permission to pass through. Tell him the same thing we tell everyone, Min-Ho said. The quarantine was not our idea. If he wants to complain, he should call the Galactic Senate. Min-Ho had been giving that same answer for months now. The aliens seemed to think humans controlled the quarantine, but that was not true. The Senate had created this mess, and now they were the ones dealing with the consequences. He walked over to his personal terminal and opened the latest reports from Earth. What he read there made him feel proud of his species, even though the situation was difficult. Dr. Soyoung Jang, Earth's leading expert on alien biology, had sent a report that explained exactly what was happening. Cut off from alien technology and trade, humanity was being forced to develop everything on their own, and humans, it turned out, were very good at that. On Mars, human engineers were building new factories that could produce things they used to buy from aliens. On Europa, scientists were discovering new ways to grow food in environments that aliens said were impossible. On Titan, miners were finding resources that alien surveys had missed completely. Most importantly, human research. Centers were making breakthroughs in technology at a speed that surprised even the humans themselves. Without alien experts telling them what was impossible, human scientists were achieving things that the galaxy had never seen before. Minho opened another file, this one from Earth's intelligence services. Agent Hyunwoo Nam had been working undercover in alien space before the quarantine began, and his reports painted a very interesting picture of what was happening on the other side of the border. The quarantine was causing major problems for alien civilizations. The Zephyrian Trade Confederation was losing billions of credits every month because their ships could not use human space shortcuts. The Arcturian mining companies were struggling because they used to buy processed metals from human colonies. Even the powerful Velkari Empire was having trouble because they relied on human-made medical supplies for their military. But the most interesting part of Hyun Woo's reports was what ordinary aliens were saying about the quarantine. Many of them were starting to question why the Senate had cut off trade with such useful partners. Some were even asking why their own governments always did whatever the Senate told them to do. "Captain," Suman called out again, "we have something new on the scanner. It looks like a small alien ship trying to sneak across the border." Minho turned his attention back to the present situation. "What kind of ship?" "It appears to be a private vessel, probably a smuggler. The design looks Novarian." Minho was not surprised. The Novarian Republic had voted against the quarantine in the Senate, and many Novarian traders were angry about losing their human business partners. Some of them had been trying to secretly maintain contact with human colonies. "Open a communication channel," Minho ordered. The main screen showed a lizard-like alien with green scales and large yellow eyes. Minho recognized him immediately. It was Kessatar, a trader who had been visiting human space for over 10 years. "Captain Choi," Kessatar said, his voice sounding worried. "I apologize for crossing the border, but I needed to speak with someone from your government. My people are suffering because of this quarantine." Minho felt sorry for the alien. Kessatar had always been fair in his dealings with humans, and his family business was probably being destroyed by the trade restrictions. "I understand your situation, Kessatar, but I cannot help you cross the quarantine line. The Senate made this decision, not us." "That is exactly what I wanted to talk about," Kessatar said quickly. "Many Novarian business leaders are very angry with the Senate. We think this quarantine is hurting everyone, including the aliens it was supposed to protect." This was interesting news. Minho had heard rumors that some alien species were unhappy with the quarantine, but this was the first time he had heard it directly from an alien source. "What are you suggesting?" Minho asked. "Some of us are wondering if there might be a way to establish unofficial communication channels. Nothing that would violate the quarantine directly, but perhaps a way to share information about when this situation might end." Minho thought carefully before answering. "This could be useful intelligence for Earth, but it could also be a trap. I will pass your message along to my superiors," he said finally. "But I cannot promise anything." After Kessatar's ship left, Minho sat in his captain's chair and thought about what the alien had said. If some species were already getting tired of the quarantine after just 6 months, what would they be thinking after a year or 2 years? His communication officer interrupted his thoughts. "Captain, we have an urgent message from Earth Command." The message was from Admiral Sunho Kang, the head of Earth's military forces. His face appeared on the screen, looking serious but not worried. "All patrol captains, this is Admiral Kang. Intelligence reports suggest that several alien species are attempting to establish secret communication with human colonies. While we appreciate their frustration with the quarantine, remember that our primary goal is the security of human space." The Admiral paused and looked directly into the camera. "However, I want all of you to understand something important. This quarantine is not weakening us, it is making us stronger. Every day we are cut off from alien influence. We become more independent and more capable." Minho nodded. He had seen the evidence of this himself in the reports from human colonies. Our scientists are making discoveries that alien experts said were impossible. Our engineers are building machines that work better than anything we used to import. Our farmers are growing food in places aliens said would never support life. The Admiral's voice became warmer, almost proud. The Galactic Senate wanted to isolate us because they feared our independence. They thought cutting us off from their civilization would force us to submit to their authority. Instead, they have given us exactly what we needed: the freedom to show what humans can really do when we are not limited by alien expectations. The message ended, leaving Minho feeling more confident than he had in months. He looked out at the stars beyond human space and wondered what the aliens were thinking now. Did they realize yet that their quarantine was creating exactly the kind of threat they had been trying to prevent? His tactical officer, Lieutenant Kyungmin Ju, walked over to his chair. "Captain, should we continue the patrol route?" "Yes," Minho said. "And make sure we document everything we see. Every alien ship that cannot cross our space, every trade convoy that has to take the long route, every smuggler who tries to sneak across the border. Command will want to know exactly how much trouble this quarantine is causing for the aliens." As the New Horizon continued its patrol, Minho thought about the conversation with Kessatar. The alien had been right about one thing: the quarantine was hurting everyone. But what the aliens did not understand yet was that while they were getting weaker from the economic disruption, humans were getting stronger from the isolation. The Galactic Senate had made a terrible mistake, and Minho suspected they were just beginning to realize it. General Sunho Kang stood in the main command center of Earth's military headquarters, looking at holographic displays that showed the positions of every human ship in the galaxy. 2 years had passed since the quarantine began, and those displays told a story that would have shocked the Galactic Senate. When the aliens had first isolated human space, Earth's military had been scattered across 12 star systems with outdated equipment and small numbers. Now, Sunho was looking at the largest military buildup in human history. "General," called Colonel Yunkyung Shin from her station at the tactical display, "the new shipyards at Proxima Centauri are reporting another successful launch. That makes 57 new warships completed this month." Sunho nodded with satisfaction. Before the quarantine, humans had been building maybe 5 or 6 new ships per year, and most of those were exploration vessels or cargo haulers. Now, with alien oversight gone and the threat of war hanging over them, human shipyards were working around the clock. But it was not just the number of ships that impressed him, it was what those ships could do. He walked over to another display, showing the technical specifications of their newest destroyer class. The weapon systems alone were 3 times more powerful than anything humans had built before the quarantine. The armor could withstand direct hits from alien plasma cannons. Most importantly, the new propulsion systems were faster than anything the Galactic Senate had in their fleets. "How is the Mars project coming along?" Sunho asked. "Engineer Jihye Cho reports that the reverse engineering work is ahead of schedule," Colonel Shin replied. "She has successfully analyzed the alien technology we captured from that crashed Velkari scout ship last year." Sunho smiled. The crashed alien ship had been a gift from the universe. When Velkari scouts had tried to test human border defenses 6 months ago, one of their ships had suffered engine failure and crashed on a remote human mining world. The crew had been rescued and returned to alien space, but the ship itself had been too damaged to repair. That wreckage had taught human engineers more about alien technology in 6 months than they had learned in 50 years of peaceful contact. Engineer Jihye Cho, working from her laboratory complex on Mars, had taken apart every piece of alien equipment and figured out how it worked. But she had not stopped there. She had found ways to improve on alien designs, making them more efficient and more powerful. The communication system buzzed, and Sunho heard Jihye's voice from Mars. "General Kang, I have the test results from our new energy weapon prototypes. You are going to want to see this." The main display changed to show Jihye's laboratory. She was a small woman with short black hair and eyes that always seemed to be thinking about complicated problems. Behind her, Sunho could see alien technology mixed with human improvements. "The power output is 60% higher than comparable alien weapons," Jihye reported. "The targeting systems are more accurate, and the energy requirements are actually lower than the original alien designs. Sunho felt a cold satisfaction in his chest. The aliens had always acted like their technology was superior to anything humans could build. Now humans were not only matching alien technology, they were making it better. "How soon can we start installing these weapons on our ships?" he asked. "The first production units will be ready next month. We can retrofit the entire fleet within 6 months. After ending the call with Jihye, Sunho turned his attention to other reports from across human space. What he read there confirmed what he had been suspecting for months. The quarantine had created exactly what the Galactic Senate had been trying to prevent. On Kepler 442b, Administrator Taehyun-oh was reporting another successful expansion of the human colony there. The planet was supposed to be too hostile for human life, according to alien scientists, but Taehyun's people had not only survived, they were thriving. The planet had extreme weather, poisonous atmosphere, and radiation, levels that would kill most alien species. But humans had developed new protective equipment, built underground cities, and found ways to use the planet's harsh conditions to their advantage. The colony was now producing rare minerals that were essential for advanced technology, and they were doing it more efficiently than any alien operation the galaxy had ever seen. Similar stories were coming from human colonies throughout their territory. On worlds that aliens had declared worthless, humans were building thriving settlements. In asteroid fields that alien miners had abandoned, human operations were extracting resources at record rates. But the most important development was not happening on distant worlds. It was happening in the minds of the human people. Sunho walked over to his personal terminal and opened the latest intelligence reports from across human space. What he read there filled him with pride and concern in equal measure. The quarantine had unified humanity in a way that nothing else ever had. Before the alien isolation, humans had often disagreed about politics, territory, and resources. Now, faced with a common external threat, every human colony was working together toward the same goal, proving that they deserved their freedom. Human children were growing up knowing that aliens had tried to cage their species like animals. Human adults were working longer hours and accepting greater sacrifices to build the military strength that would keep them free. Human scientists were pushing the boundaries of knowledge because they knew that superior technology was their best defense against superior numbers. The quarantine had not just isolated humanity from alien civilization, it had forced humans to become something new, a species that knew it had to rely on itself alone. "General," Colonel Shin called out, "we have an incoming priority message from the Intelligence Division." The message was from Agent Hyun-woo Nam, who had managed to maintain his undercover position in alien space despite the quarantine. His reports always provided valuable information about what the aliens were thinking. "General Kang," Hyun-woo's recorded voice began, "the situation in alien space is becoming more unstable. The economic problems caused by the quarantine are worse than we initially estimated." Sunho listened carefully. Understanding alien problems was almost as important as solving human ones. The Zephyrian Trade Confederation has lost over 40% of their revenue. 3 major Arcturian mining companies have gone bankrupt. Even the Velkari Empire is having trouble maintaining their military because they relied on human-made components for their ships. This was excellent news. The aliens had cut off trade with humanity thinking it would hurt humans more than aliens. They had been completely wrong. More importantly, Hyun-woo continued, I am seeing growing dissatisfaction among younger generations of alien species. Many of them are questioning why their governments submitted to the Senate's decision without consulting their own people. Sunho paused the message and thought about what this meant. If aliens were starting to question their own governments, the quarantine might be creating problems for the Senate beyond simple economic difficulties. He resumed the message. I have also confirmed that several alien species are secretly attempting to establish communication channels with human colonies. The Novarian Republic, the Helios Federation, and at least 12 smaller civilizations are unhappy with the quarantine and want to restore relationships with humanity. The message ended with a warning that the Velkari Empire was planning some kind of military action to test human defenses. Sunho made a note to increase security in border systems and prepare his commanders for possible combat. As he finished reading the intelligence reports, Sunho realized that the Galactic Senate was facing a problem they had never anticipated. They had expected the quarantine to weaken humanity and force them to submit. Instead, It had made humans stronger while making aliens weaker. The aliens had also expected their action to demonstrate their power and authority to the rest of the galaxy. Instead, it was making other species question why they allowed the Senate to make decisions for them. Colonel Shin approached his desk with another report. "General, our border patrols are reporting increased alien military activity near the quarantine line. It looks like the Velkari Empire is positioning ships for some kind of operation." Sunho looked at the tactical displays and saw the alien ships gathering at the edge of human space. Part of him hoped they would be foolish enough to attack. After 2 years of preparation, he was eager to show the galaxy what free humans could do when threatened. "Double our patrols in that sector," he ordered, "and make sure our new weapon systems are fully operational. If the aliens want to test us, we should give them a lesson they will never forget." As his officers rushed to carry out his orders, Sunho walked back to the main display showing human space. 2 years ago, it had shown a small, isolated territory surrounded by hostile aliens. Now it showed the foundation of something much more important, a free human civilization that had grown stronger through adversity. The Galactic Senate had called humanity a threat to their order. Soon they would discover just how right they had been. Captain Sungjin Yu stood on the bridge of the human destroyer Defiance, watching the scanner displays with calm attention. 3 years had passed since the quarantine began, and today the Velkari Empire had finally decided to test humanity's resolve. "Captain," reported his tactical officer, Lieutenant Nayung Kim, "we have 12 Velkari warships crossing into human space near the new Sol colony. They are claiming this is a routine patrol to ensure quarantine compliance." Sungjin almost smiled. The Velkari Empire had always been the most arrogant species in the Galactic Senate, and they clearly believed their own propaganda about human weakness. Admiral Kexthyra, the Velkari commander leading this patrol, was about to learn a very painful lesson. "Are our weapon systems fully charged?" Sungjin asked. "Yes, Captain. All new energy weapons are online and ready. Shield generators are at maximum power." Sungjin nodded and opened a communication channel to the approaching alien fleet. The main screen filled with the image of Admiral Kexthyra, a tall alien with silver skin and 4 eyes arranged around her elongated head. Her expression showed the typical Velkari attitude of superior confidence. "Human vessel," Kexthyra said in a voice that sounded like she was talking to a disobedient child. "You will move aside and allow our ships to conduct a security inspection of this system. The Galactic Senate has authorized us to ensure that the quarantine is being properly maintained." Sungjin had been expecting something like this. The aliens were looking for an excuse to enter human space and gather intelligence about human military capabilities. They probably thought one small human destroyer would not dare challenge an entire Velkari fleet. "Admiral Kexthyra," Sungjin replied in a polite but firm voice. "This is human territory, and you do not have permission to enter it. I suggest you return to your own space immediately." The Velkari Admiral's 4 eyes all focused on him with obvious anger. "You dare to threaten the military forces of the Velkari Empire? Your primitive weapons cannot harm our ships. Move aside, or we will move you aside." Sungjin looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. These men and women had trained for 3 years for exactly this moment. They were ready to show the galaxy what human engineering and human courage could accomplish. "I am going to give you one final warning," Sungjin said. "Leave human space now, or face the consequences." Kexthyra's response was to cut the communication and order her ships to attack. The Velkari fleet had numbers and size on their side. Their warships were massive, each one 3 times larger than the Defiance. Their weapons had been considered state-of-the-art by galactic standards for over a century. Their shields were designed to withstand anything humans might throw at them. But the Velkari Admiral had made one critical mistake. She had believed the Galactic Senate's assessment of human military capabilities, and that assessment was 3 years out of date. "All stations, prepare for combat," Sungjin ordered. "Let's show them what free humans can do." The first Velkari plasma bolts struck the Defiance's shields and scattered harmlessly into space. The alien weapons that should have cut through human defenses like paper barely made the shield generators flicker. "Return fire," Sungjin commanded. The Defiance's new energy weapons, based on improved alien technology, struck the leading Velkari ship with devastating effect. The alien vessel's shields collapsed completely under the first barrage, and the second volley tore through its armor like it was made of paper. On the scanner, Seung-jin watched the Valkyrie flagship, a ship that had terrorized weaker species for decades, break apart and explode in a brilliant flash of light. The remaining 11 Valkyrie ships immediately changed their attack pattern, clearly shocked by the destruction of their flagship. But their new tactics did not help them. The human weapons were simply too powerful, and the human shields were too strong. Within 20 minutes, the entire Valkyrie fleet had been destroyed. Not damaged, not disabled, completely destroyed. The Defiance had not suffered so much as a scratch on its hull. "Captain," Lieutenant Kim reported, "we are receiving a wideband transmission. Someone is broadcasting this battle across multiple communication networks." Seung-jin turned to see war correspondent Yoonji Lim emerging from the back of the bridge, where she had been recording everything with her camera equipment. Yoonji had been embedded with the human fleet specifically to document moments like this. "The entire galaxy needs to see this," Yoonji said with excitement in her voice. "They need to know that the quarantine has not weakened humanity. It has made us stronger than anyone imagined." Seung-jin agreed. For 3 years, the galaxy had been wondering what was happening in isolated human space. Now they would have their answer. The recording of the battle spread across hidden networks faster than the Galactic Senate could stop it. On dozens of worlds, alien civilians watched in stunned silence as a single human ship destroyed an entire Valkyrie fleet without suffering any damage. The reaction was immediate and dramatic. On Novaria Prime, crowds gathered in the streets to cheer for the human victory. The Novarian Republic had opposed the quarantine from the beginning, and their people were thrilled to see the Valkyrie Empire humiliated. On Arcturian colonies, mining workers who had lost their jobs because of the quarantine celebrated the defeat of the aliens who had caused their economic problems. Even on worlds loyal to the Galactic Senate, younger aliens began asking uncomfortable questions about why their governments had isolated such powerful potential allies. But the most important reaction came from an unexpected source. 3 days after the battle, Seung-jin received a priority message from Earth's foreign ministry. The new foreign minister, Dong-min-ha, appeared on his screen looking both pleased and concerned. "Captain Yu, your victory has had consequences that reach far beyond military matters. We have been contacted by representatives of the Arcturian coalition through secret communication channels. This was significant news. The Arcturian coalition had been enemies of the Valkyrie Empire for over 2 centuries, but they had never dared to openly oppose them because of Valkyrie military superiority." "What do they want?" Seung-jin asked. "They are proposing a formal alliance with humanity. They believe that together we could challenge Valkyrie dominance in this part of the galaxy." Seung-jin thought about this carefully. An alliance with the Arcturians would mean the end of human isolation, but it would also mean taking sides in conflicts that had been going on for centuries. "There is more," Minister Ha continued. "Intelligence reports suggest that at least 6 other species are considering similar approaches. The battle you fought has convinced them that humanity is not the helpless, isolated species the Senate claimed we were." The minister paused and looked directly into the camera. "Captain, your crew has done more than win a single battle. You have cracked the foundation of the quarantine itself. Other species are starting to realize that the Senate lied to them about human capabilities." After the call ended, Seung-jin walked over to the large windows at the front of his bridge and looked out at the debris field where the Valkyrie fleet had died. Each piece of wreckage represented years of alien engineering and billions of credits in military spending, all destroyed in less than half an hour by a single human ship. But the real victory was not the destruction of enemy ships. The real victory was the message this battle had sent to every alien civilization in the galaxy. Humanity was not the weak, primitive species the Galactic Senate had described. They were something much more dangerous. Lieutenant Kim approached his position. "Captain, what are your orders?" Seung-jin continued looking at the wreckage for a moment before answering. "Maintain patrol of this system and prepare a full battle report for command. Make sure to include detailed specifications of our weapons, performance and damage assessments of the alien ships." He turned to face his crew, feeling proud of what they had accomplished together. "Also, send a message to all human colonies in this sector. Tell them that the galaxy now knows the truth about human military capabilities. The quarantine was supposed to keep us isolated and weak, but instead, it gave us the time and motivation to become stronger than our enemies ever imagined. As his officers carried out these orders, Sungjin thought about what would happen next. The Galactic Senate had based their quarantine on the assumption that humans were too primitive to pose a real threat. That assumption had just been proven catastrophically wrong. The aliens were about to discover that isolating humanity had been like giving a dangerous animal time to grow larger and sharper teeth. Now those teeth were about to be used. Agent Borum Seo crouched in the shadows of an abandoned warehouse on the alien world of Velkarus Prime, listening carefully to the conversation taking place in the building across the street. 4 years had passed since the quarantine began, and Borum had spent the last 2 years working undercover in the heart of Velkari territory. What she was hearing tonight would change everything. Through her hidden recording equipment, she could hear the voices of 3 high-ranking Velkari officials discussing the real reasons behind the quarantine. Senator Vex Myron, Admiral Thisakol, and Intelligence Director Quentara were meeting in secret, and they believed no one else could hear them. The quarantine was never about protecting the galaxy from human aggression, Senator Vex Myron was saying. It was about preventing other species from seeing what human independence looked like. Borum felt her heart racing. This was exactly what human intelligence had suspected, but hearing it confirmed by the aliens themselves was still shocking. Every species in the galaxy submits to the Senate's authority, Admiral Thisakol added. They accept that we know what is best for them, but humans refuse to bow down to anyone. If other species started following their example, the entire galactic order would collapse, Intelligence Director Quentara finished. We would lose control over civilizations that have been obedient for thousands of years. Borum continued recording as the aliens discussed their growing problems. The quarantine had been designed to isolate humanity until they became desperate, enough to accept Senate authority. Instead, it had created exactly what the Senate feared most, a completely independent human civilization that was now more powerful than ever. After the meeting ended and the aliens left, Borum carefully made her way back to her hidden communication equipment. She needed to get this information to Earth immediately. Meanwhile, on Earth, data analyst Youngmin Baek was working late in his office at Earth Intelligence Headquarters. He had been analyzing intercepted Senate communications for months, looking for patterns that might reveal alien intentions. Tonight, he had finally found something important. "Director," Youngmin called to his supervisor, "I need you to see this right away." Director Park walked over to Youngmin's workstation, where multiple screens showed decoded alien messages from across the galaxy. "I have been analyzing communication, patterns between Senate worlds," Youngmin explained. "Look at this message traffic from the past 6 months." The screens showed a web of communications between alien governments, with certain messages highlighted in red. These red messages are all discussing the same topic: growing unrest among younger alien populations. They are questioning why their governments always follow Senate orders without asking their own people what they want. Director Park studied the data carefully. What kind of unrest? Protests on at least 30 worlds. Political movements demanding more independence from Senate control. Most importantly, many of these groups are specifically citing humanity as an example of how a species can govern itself without external authority. This was exactly what the human government had been hoping to hear. The quarantine was not just isolating humanity. It was inspiring other species to question their own lack of freedom. Youngmin opened another file. "There is more. I have identified secret communications between several alien governments and what appear to be human intermediaries. The Novarian Republic, the Helios Federation, and at least 15 smaller civilizations are trying to establish unofficial contact with human colonies. What do they want? Based on the message patterns, they seem to be asking for advice on how to become more independent from Senate control. Some are even discussing the possibility of withdrawing from the Senate entirely." Director Park realized the implications immediately. The Senate had created the quarantine to prevent human ideas about freedom from spreading. Instead, the quarantine itself had become a symbol of Senate oppression, and it was inspiring exactly the kind of independence movements the aliens had been trying to prevent. That same evening, Chancellor Jiwan An was preparing to make the most important speech of her career. She had replaced Prime Minister Lee 6 months earlier when he decided to step down. And now she faced a decision that would determine humanity's future. The secret communications from alien civilizations had been increasing for weeks. Dozens of species were asking for human support in their struggles for independence. Some were even requesting permission to send representatives to human space to learn about self-governance. Chancellor An had decided it was time to make humanity's position clear to the entire galaxy. She walked into the main broadcast studio in Geneva, where cameras would carry her message across human space and, through hidden networks, to alien worlds throughout the galaxy. Citizens of Earth and all human colonies, she began. 4 years ago, the Galactic Senate declared our species a threat to galactic peace and imposed a quarantine on human space. Tonight, I want to explain to the galaxy why they were right to fear us. She paused, looking directly into the camera with the confidence of someone who knew she was making history. We are a threat to their system because we represent something they cannot control. The idea that intelligent beings should be free to make their own choices about how they live. Across the galaxy, aliens who had managed to access the broadcast stopped what they were doing to listen. For thousands of years, the Galactic Senate has maintained order by convincing civilizations that they need external authority to govern them properly. They have taught species to believe that freedom is dangerous and that independence leads to chaos. Chancellor An's voice grew stronger and more passionate. But we humans know that freedom is not dangerous. Slavery is dangerous. Independence does not lead to chaos. Submission to tyrants leads to chaos. The Senate fears us because we prove that their system is built on lies. She stood up from her desk and walked closer to the camera. To the alien civilizations who are listening to this broadcast, I want you to know that humanity offers you something the Senate never will: respect for your right to govern yourselves. The next part of her speech would change galactic history. Therefore, I am announcing that Earth and all human colonies will provide sanctuary to any being from any species who seeks freedom from Senate oppression. We will share our knowledge of self-governance with any civilization that wants to learn. We will support any species that chooses to withdraw from Senate control. She returned to her desk and looked directly into the camera for her final statement. Though Galactic Senate called us a threat to their order, they were absolutely right. We are a threat to any system that treats intelligent beings like property to be controlled. We are a threat to any government that rules without the consent of the governed. We are a threat to tyranny in all its forms. The broadcast ended, but its effects were immediate and dramatic. Within hours, human communication networks were flooded with messages from alien civilizations. Some were thanking humanity for offering support. Others were announcing their intention to withdraw from the Senate. A few were requesting immediate assistance in establishing independent governments. But the most important response came from an unexpected source. Late that night, Chancellor An received a priority message from Novarian Prime Minister Kes Malin. The lizard-like alien appeared on her screen looking both excited and nervous. Chancellor An, he began, your speech tonight has given my people the courage to take a step we have been considering for months. Tomorrow, the Novarian Republic will formally announce our withdrawal from the Galactic Senate. This was the first domino to fall, but An knew it would not be the last. We are not the only ones, the Novarian leader continued. The Helios Federation has agreed to withdraw with us, so have the Tau Collective, the Centauri Alliance, and 14 smaller civilizations. We are calling ourselves the Free Worlds Coalition, and we want humanity to help us establish a new form of galactic government based on voluntary cooperation rather than forced submission. Chancellor An felt a mixture of pride and responsibility. The quarantine that was supposed to isolate humanity had instead created the largest independence movement in galactic history. Prime Minister, she replied, humanity will be honored to work with free civilizations toward a better future for all intelligent beings. As the call ended, An looked out the windows of her office at the lights of Geneva below. 4 years ago, Earth had seemed alone and surrounded by enemies. Now, it was becoming the center of a growing alliance of free worlds. The Galactic Senate had created the quarantine to prevent human ideas about freedom from spreading. Instead, they had given those ideas 4 years to grow into a revolution that was now spreading across the galaxy. The aliens had been right to call humanity a threat. They had just been wrong about what kind of threat they were dealing with. Admiral Donghae Quan stood on the bridge of the Earth Federation flagship Liberator, watching the largest fleet ever assembled in human history prepare for what would be the final battle of the Quarantine War. 5 years had passed since the Galactic Senate had tried to cage humanity, and now they were about to learn the true cost of that decision. "Admiral," reported his tactical officer, Commander Jamin O. "Long-range scanners show the Senate coalition, fleet approaching the outer edge of the Sol system. We count over 800 warships from 12 different species." Donghae nodded calmly. He had been expecting this moment for months. After 17 alien civilizations had withdrawn from the Galactic Senate to join the Free World's coalition, the remaining Senate members had finally decided that humanity had to be destroyed completely. Leading the Senate fleet was Thex Morin himself, the same alien who had announced the quarantine 5 years earlier. The purple-skinned Velkari was now supreme commander of the largest military force the galaxy had ever seen, and he was coming to Sol with one purpose: to end human independence forever. "What is the status of our own fleet?" Donghae asked. "All human ships are in position, Admiral. We have 400 vessels ready for combat. The Free World's coalition has sent another 200 ships to fight alongside us." Donghae looked at the tactical display showing the positions of both fleets. The numbers favored the enemy, but numbers were not everything. The human fleet was equipped with 5 years of technological improvements, crewed by people fighting for their freedom, and supported by alien allies who had chosen independence over slavery. "Open a communication channel to all ships," Donghae ordered. "I want to address our fleet before the battle begins." The main screen showed the bridge of the Liberator, with Donghae standing at the center. Throughout human space, on ships and colonies and orbital stations, people stopped what they were doing to listen to their admiral. 5 years ago, Donghae began, the Galactic Senate declared that humanity was a threat to galactic peace. They were afraid of our independence, our refusal to bow down to their authority, and our belief that intelligent beings should be free to choose their own path. He paused, looking directly into the camera with the confidence of someone who knew. He was fighting for the right cause. Today, they have come to Sol with the largest fleet in galactic history, determined to destroy us once and for all. They believe that superior numbers will allow them to crush human independence and restore their control over the galaxy. Around the bridge, his officers listened with calm determination. These men and women had trained their entire lives for this moment, but they have made the same mistake they made 5 years ago. They still do not understand what they are truly fighting. They think they are fighting a single species that got too proud and too independent. They do not realize they are fighting an idea. The idea that freedom is the birthright of every intelligent being in the universe. On alien worlds throughout the galaxy, beings who had managed to access the human broadcast felt their hearts racing as they listened to these words. Today, we do not fight alone. Ships from 17 free civilizations stand with us, crewed by beings who chose freedom over security, independence over submission. Together we will show the galaxy that tyranny cannot defeat the desire for liberty. Donghae's voice grew stronger as he delivered his final words. The Senate called us a threat to their order. Today, we proved them completely right. We are a threat to any system that treats thinking beings like property. We are a threat to any government that rules through fear and control. We are a threat to tyranny itself. The communication ended, and Donghae turned his attention to the approaching enemy fleet. All ships, prepare for combat. Let's finish what the Senate started 5 years ago. The Battle of Sol's Gate began when the Senate fleet opened fire at maximum range, hoping to destroy human ships before they could respond effectively. But the aliens had underestimated human technology once again. The new human shields developed. From improved alien designs, absorbed the enemy fire without difficulty. The human weapons, now generations ahead of anything the aliens possessed, struck back with devastating effectiveness. The first wave of Senate ships, proud Velkari destroyers, that had terrorized weaker species for centuries, were cut apart by human energy beams like paper targets. The alien formations, designed for fighting primitive opponents, dissolved into chaos as human tactics proved superior to anything they had prepared for. But the most important part of the battle was not the fighting itself. It was the fact that every moment of the combat was being broadcast live across the galaxy. War correspondent Yoonji Lim, now working from the Bridge of the Liberator, provided commentary as the human fleet systematically destroyed enemy formations. "This is Yoonji Lim reporting from the flagship Liberator," she said into her camera as explosions lit up the space around them. "The Senate fleet came here believing they could crush human independence through superior numbers. Instead, they are discovering that 5 years of isolation have made humanity more powerful than they ever imagined. On 1,000 worlds, alien civilians watched their supposedly invincible military forces being defeated by the same humans their governments had told them were primitive and weak. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, over half the Senate fleet had been destroyed, and the rest were retreating in complete disorder. The human fleet had lost only 12 ships, and most of those had been damaged rather than destroyed. But the military victory was less important than its political consequences. Within hours of the battle's end, 8 more alien civilizations announced their withdrawal from the Galactic Senate. The Cormyran Empire, which had been one of the Senate's most loyal members for over 1,000 years, declared its independence and requested membership in the Free Worlds Coalition. On the Senate homeworld of Centralia Prime, massive protests erupted as alien citizens demanded to know why their government had lied to them about human capabilities. Similar demonstrations spread to dozens of other worlds as the broadcast of the battle reached every corner of the galaxy. 3 days after the Battle of Sol's Gate, President Minji Go of the newly established Earth Federation received a message that marked the end of the old galactic order. The message came from Centralia Prime, but it was not from the Galactic Senate. It was from a group calling itself the Provisional Democratic Council, made up of representatives from alien species, who had overthrown their Senate-loyal governments. "President Go," the message began, "the Galactic Senate has formally dissolved. The species that created it can no longer maintain control over civilizations that have seen what true independence looks like." President Go smiled as she read the rest of the message. The aliens were requesting guidance on how to establish democratic governments and asking for membership in the Free Worlds Coalition. 2 weeks later, President Go stood before the largest gathering of intelligent beings in galactic history. Representatives from over 40 different species had come to Earth to establish a new form of galactic government. The meeting was held in the same room where the United Nations had once debated Earth's problems. Now it hosted beings from across the galaxy as they worked to create something that had never existed before, a truly voluntary alliance of free civilizations. 5 years ago, President Go said to the assembled delegates, "The Galactic Senate declared humanity a threat to galactic peace and order. They were right." She looked around the room at the faces of beings who had traveled across the galaxy to be part of this historic moment. "We were a threat to their system of control and submission. We were a threat to their belief that intelligent beings needed to be ruled by distant authorities. We were a threat to the idea that freedom was too dangerous for most species to handle." The room was completely silent as every being present listened to her words. "Today, we establish something new. The Free Worlds Alliance. This is not a government that will rule over its members. It is a partnership between equals, based on mutual respect and voluntary cooperation." She paused and smiled at the delegates. "The old Galactic Senate maintained order through fear and control. We will maintain peace through friendship and shared values. They demanded submission from their members. We offer only the chance to work together as free beings toward a better future for all." Admiral Yuna Kim, now serving as Earth's Secretary of Defense, watched the ceremony from the back of the room. She thought back to that day 5 years earlier when she had received the Senate's quarantine announcement on Luna Base. The aliens had been absolutely right to call humanity a threat. They had just been wrong about what kind of threat they were dealing with. Humanity had not threatened the galaxy with conquest or destruction. They had threatened it with something far more dangerous to tyrants, the example of freedom. As the ceremony continued and delegates from dozens of species signed the Free World's Charter, Yuna looked out the windows at Earth's blue sky and felt proud of what her species had accomplished. The Galactic Senate had tried to cage humanity to prevent their ideas about freedom from spreading. Instead, they had given those ideas 5 years, to grow into a revolution that had liberated half the galaxy. The aliens had called humans a threat to their order, and Earth had proved them completely